Hello and welcome back to more High Peak. Well, if you've got £5,000 to spend and you want a reliable used car, you might be wondering what your best option is. Well, after 15 years in the used car business, I've got a list for you. This list is based on genuine first-hand experience, but one thing I will say, something I've learned over the years, is any car can be unreliable if it's neglected. So it's really important that you service your car on time and look after it. Right, let's get into it. The first one on my list then is the taxi driver's favourite, the Skoda Octavia. Now this is a really good point actually, something to think about. If you want a reliable car, just have a look at what taxi drivers are driving. You know, it makes perfect sense. These are people who rely on that car for a living, so that car has got to be reliable. And you see so many Skoda Octavia taxis. I've done plenty of videos with the Skoda Octavia on my main channel, High Peak Autos, so if you want to learn more, then head over there and watch them. Generally speaking though, if maintained, they're a very reliable car, particularly the 2-litre TDI. Now just make sure that you service it every 10,000 miles, make sure you replace the timing belt, make sure it gets a good long run regularly so you don't have any issues with the DPF, and what you have there is a good, solid, sensible, reliable mode of transport. They have a timing belt that's due to be replaced every 100,000 miles, so make sure you get that done. That'll cost you £400 or £500 to replace. Also at the same time, make sure you replace the water pump because the water pump's driven from the same belt. So if that seizes, it's the equivalent of the belt snapping, so make sure you have it done at the same time. They do a 1.6 litre turbo diesel, which can be a bit more economical, but personally, for reliability, I'd go with the 2 litre. The model I've got in mind while I'm talking to you is the one which ran from 2013 to 2020, and it's just a really good, solid family car. In fact, it even topped What Car's reliability survey. So this isn't just my own opinion. If I'm being critical, they're a little bit dull, they're a little bit vanilla, but that's the price you pay for reliability. The second one on the list then, if you thought the Skoda Octavia was a bit dull and you want something a bit more fun, is the Mazda MX5. Now, ever since the MX5 came out in 1989, they've earned a reputation for being reliable little sports cars. The only thing you have to watch out for on them really is rust. Apart from that, they are very reliable. Over the years, I've had dozens of these cars and I've never had any serious issues. And bear in mind, this little 2-seater rear-wheel drive sports car, they do take a bit of a beating. £5,000 will get you a really decent example. The other good thing is they're chain driven, so there's no timing belt to replace. Just make sure it's had regular oil changes and a regular wax oil underneath, and you should be fine. They're great fun to drive and they're properly bulletproof. Like I say, just watch out for rust, particularly on the sills. Before we get on to the next car on this list, I just need to say a big thank you to today's video sponsor, Car Vertical. I always use Car Vertical. I'll leave the link below in the video description, but it's really easy to use. All you do is go to carvertical.com and type in the reg or the VIN. Once you type in the reg or the VIN, it produces a really thorough, detailed report. So it checks database in 35 different countries. It'll tell you if it's ever been stolen, written off, had a mileage rollback, or has outstanding finance on it. In addition to that, it shows you the ownership changes, the reg plate changes, the spec, the average market value, the MOT history, and a whole lot more. If you want to do one of these checks for yourself, and I urge you to do so before you hand over any cash for a used car or motorbike, there are just so many dodgy cars out there, don't end up buying one. Make sure you use my promo code HIGHPEAK, that's HIGHPEAK all one word, HIGHPEAK, for 20% off each and every check that you do. And you can use that promo code as many times as you like. Thanks Car Vertical for sponsoring today's video. Right, back to the list. Next on the list then at number 3, if the MX-5 is too small and impractical for you, is the Kia Sportage. The model I'm talking about specifically is the Mark III. Now this ran from 2010 to 2016. Now if you want reliability above all else, what you want is a low-spec 2-wheel drive petrol example. They just don't go wrong. They can occasionally have an issue where they burn too much oil, but that's usually just a PCV valve replacement, and it isn't an expensive job. They're quite a basic car, so there's very little to go wrong. Now you could go for an all-singing, all-dancing KX4 model with a pan roof and 4-wheel drive, but then you're just asking for more things to break. Whereas the 2-wheel drive petrol is a far safer bet. You know, when these cars were new, Kia sold them with a 7-year warranty, so it just shows how much confidence Kia had in them in the first place. It's still really important to check through the car's service history and make sure it's had regular oil changes, but they are a really reliable car, and I think they make a great family car. They're very practical and very safe. Number 4 on the list then is the Toyota Auris, or as it's known in some markets, the Corolla. And you really can't beat the reliability of a Corolla. This might be a bit of a boring and predictable selection, but I couldn't do a video about reliable cars without featuring the Corolla. What you want to go for though, if you want reliability above all else, is a petrol manual. You see, here in Europe the automatics used a semi-automatic and they weren't the most reliable, whereas the manuals just never go wrong. The Auris came as well as a diesel, but they're not the most reliable. So again, what I'd say is stick to a naturally aspirated, non-turbocharged petrol. They just don't go wrong. The engines are chain driven, so there's no timing belts to replace. Just make sure it's got good service history and continue to look after it, and I promise you, you won't have a problem. The second generation Auris, which came out in 2013, was every bit as reliable, and you see loads on the road still as taxis. Now that's because they offered them as a petrol hybrid system, and it was the same system you got in the Toyota Prius. And although if you want reliability above all else, I'd shy away from a hybrid system, the Toyota hybrid system is the best in its class. It's quite common to see an Auris hybrid taxi with 250,000 miles on it. It's still going strong. £5,000 will get you a really good example with full service history. And there are loads of them out there, so just make sure you go for the best one you can buy. I read on the What Car Reliability survey, it scored something like 96%, so it isn't just my opinion, these are a very reliable car. The last car on this list then is the Honda Civic. Now you really can't beat a good petrol Honda Civic. The Civic's been around since 1972 and they've got a well-deserved reputation for reliability. For £5,000 or less, what you'll get is a good 9th generation. So this is the model that came out in 2011. They're also available here in the UK as an estate or a station wagon, so they're quite a practical thing too. What I'd recommend you go for though is a petrol rather than a diesel. That way you won't have any issues with the turbo or the DPF. A bit like the Auris and the Corolla, what I'd recommend you go for as well is a manual, not an automatic. They're just far more reliable. It isn't uncommon to see a Civic on the road with well over 200,000 miles on the clock. They're just one of those kinds of cars. Well, I think that's about it then. So there's my list of the top 5 most reliable cars you can buy for under £5,000. Now I know what you're thinking, they might not be the most exciting cars out there, they might not get your pulse racing, but I guarantee they won't leave you stranded. Well, they shouldn't do anyway if you continue to maintain them. I think what you've got to remember is if you've got £5,000 to spend on a used car, you need to make sure it's dependable, safe transport. And every single car featured on this list is a good example of that. I've also tried to feature something for everyone, from a 2-seat sports car to a practical SUV. Generally speaking, excluding tax and insurance, these cars will only cost you a few £100s a year to run and maintain. For any of these cars featured, I'd factor between £300 and £500 a year in maintenance and servicing costs. But if you continue to service them, then they really shouldn't let you down. So I think that's about it. I hope you found this video useful and thanks for watching. Make sure you follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. I'll leave the links below and I'll see you next time. Cheers guys.